Hi, we got here at Boca Raton, we got Keith Neumeyer. Keith, you got different hats going on, and you're wearing several different ones. If you can just tell us a little bit more about what hats you wear.
Well, when you say that, I have been in the mining sector for 40 years. I turned 65 this year, and so I've got I see a lot, and I put together a copper company early in my career in the early 90s, and it became quite a successful business. And then I put First Majestic together in 2002 with the goal of becoming a 10 million ounce producer within 10 years. We achieved that, and which is quite nice. I put the company together when silver was $7 an ounce. When silver went through $10, we were partying it up, making money. So our costs were below $10 at that time. This is 22 years ago. Now at $35 silver, our costs have doubled. We're around 18, 19 kind of costs per ounce now. So costs have gone up, but now we're producing 32 million ounces of silver.
Yep.
So we're one of the largest silver companies in North America. Not a too bad place to be. I decided to put together a gold company in 2015. A company called First Mining Gold. Many people at the show, are shareholders. It's well known. It's been around. I took it public in 2015, and I bought a portfolio of gold projects in Canada. It had a market cap of 600 million. We raised a ton of money for it. We've got a couple assets. One's under permitting right now, and over the last 8 years, we've spent $100 million on permitting for that one gold mine in northern Ontario. And it looks like finally we see the light at the end of the tunnel, that it could actually get permitted here in the next year and a bit.
Okay, so you're thinking the next 12 months?
When you're dealing with regulatory
Right.
stuff, it's always hard to really kind of pinpoint.
Right.
But we can actually see it happening now.
Okay.
Like a year or two, we're going, when is this going to happen? Right? We keep spending the money. And for a company with no revenues, you always have to sell stock. You have to always, when I say sell stock, I mean raise money through selling of, through private placements and so on. And it's just hard on management to constantly keep raising money. And for First Majestic, it's a totally different story. We have the highest treasury we've ever had in the company's history. Our balance sheet's as strong as it's ever been in the company's history.
Yeah.
I look at our cash reports, which I get every Friday, and it puts a smile on my face, like, wow, we actually have that much money in the bank. This is pretty darn good. Juniors are a different story. They have to, like First Mining Gold, they got to always go back to market, raise money. So it'll be nice to see that go from a developer to construction and a producer.
Yeah.
And now we could see that potentially happen over the next couple of years.
So just so you know, you don't know me. This is our first time meeting, but I've followed you for a long time. I first heard about you from my colleague Andy. I think you did one of his first interviews back in the day in his previous business.
Oh, okay.
And he got me become an investor of First Majestic Silver. And so when you think of silver, you can't help but think of First Majestic. And so you've got the track record, you've got the history, you got the respect of your peers. What made you decide I want to go into gold?
Well, gold is different than silver, and I looked at valuations. So gold and silver peaked out in 2012, and despite the fact I predicted silver was going to hit $50 when I was putting First Majestic together, which it did in 2011. I did not expect that silver was going to go all the way from 50 to 12, right? Which it did, and that was devastating to First Majestic at the time. Mm-hmm. We had to lay off about 1,500 people over the next, between 2012 and 2014. We had to shrink our investment in Mexico or the mines. We cut our exploration back down to almost nothing. We had to cut all our investments down to just rock bottom, just to get through that period of time. What happened, from 2014 to 2016, there was this bottom of the market, and I was looking at all these, junior mining companies out there, and the valuations that they were trading at were just so ridiculous. You had mines or projects that had $100 million investments into them that were trading at $5 million.
Yeah.
Right, and they had like 1 million ounces of gold,
right,
sitting in the ground,
right,
and you go, so whoa, like gold ounces were trading at $5, $7, $8 an ounce in the ground, and I just I had to do something here, and so I hired a team. Well, not hire, I had my own team.
Yeah.
For just I said, look, give me the top 100 mining companies or junior mining companies, and this is the criteria. I gave them a list of criteria, and give me a list. So it took them about 6 months, and they gave me a list. I said, okay, well, this is too big. Let's cut it down. So we started cutting down. We got it down to, it took us another 6 months, but we got to cut down to 10.
Okay.
The top 10 gold assets in North America, which all were in Canada, surprisingly. We didn't expect that was going to happen, but it just so happened that gold assets in Canada were trading cheaper than even in Mexico.
Wow.
Which is crazy, right? And so okay, fine, thanks very much. So I had these 10 targets. So I met with all the board of directors of those companies, and I said, hey, look, let's merge into a single company. And because your lights are about to get turned off, you got no money in the bank. You're dead in the water.
Yeah.
We put these companies together into a single company, and it could be quite something of excitement, right? And I convinced 8 of them.
Wow.
So over the next 15 months, we acquired 18 companies, and or 8 companies, pardon me.
Okay.
And and I raised the money for it, and as I said, it has a $600 million market cap. Today it's about 200 million, so it's come down from its peaks. But today, 10 years later, it's a much stronger company than what it was 10 years ago. But it's just cheaper just because the market's just where the market is.
It's a great bargain.
Yeah, it's the market, right? You can't. The Lassonde curve. I'm sure your listeners know about the Lassonde curve.
Yeah.
Exploration, you go like this. Development, you go like this. And production, you go back up. So there's a lot of developers in this First Majestic.
Right.
We're looking at that space because that's where you get that dip, right? Right. That's where the majors say, hey, that's where the value is, because the developers, people here in the retail audience, they don't want to buy the developers because they're all boring, right? It's just like, oh, you're waiting for permits, you're waiting for this, you're waiting for that. There's no more drilling, no more exciting news, so they just get ignored until you break ground on your mill, and then things start to happen again, and people start coming back in. So that's where some of these companies are, and in the case of First Mining Gold, that's exactly where they are.
So is First Mining Gold, I'm assuming that's taken away, not away, but you're exerting a lot of your energy towards this project.
Very little.
So
I'm the chairman.
Yeah.
If I didn't have good management there, then that would be a problem. As a chairman, I'm not an executive chairman.
Okay.
I'm even though I'm an insider, I own a ton of stock.
Yeah.
I just bought some stock last week, actually. But I'm not involved in day to day. The CEO will send me an email or phone me once every 2-3 weeks, and we have our board meetings every quarter. And
Can you tell us about the structure of the shares, the diluted, the options
of that company?
Of both?
On First Majestic, we have about 400 million shares outstanding.
Okay.
So it'd have a market cap of something around a little over $4 billion, I think, in that range.
And how much would you say of those are insiders and institutions?
Well, I'd be the biggest, so I'm around 4%, I guess, of that.
Okay.
I have to go do the math just to make sure I didn't miscalculate that. But I'm the largest private investor.
Okay.
I put the company together myself, of course, and as the company's diluted, my percentage ownership when I put the company together was obviously much higher.
Right.
But but that's when the company was just being formed.
Right.
But over the years, I get diluted, but dilution is kind of one of those bad words, because dilution only happens if the management wastes money, right? If we spend $100 million
Yeah.
in stock, we issue you $100
Yeah.
million because we want to buy your mine, right? You get your stock, you're happy with your $100 million worth of stock.
Yeah.
Our shareholders go, you just issued $100 million worth of stock. What do I get for it?
Right.
Right? Which is a fair question. But if that $100 million worth of stock that we just issued becomes worth $500 million,
Yeah.
that's not dilutive. That's accretive. So that's a good investment.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how management teams should be measured. Not done pure dilution, selling stock and paying your salary.
Right.
That's dilution, right? Because you're not creating a benefit for your shareholders by selling shares. Raising
So what's
money.
your secret sauce to do that?
It's never 100%. I've made my mistakes over my career, and if you're batting 70-80%, I think you're doing okay. I think that's in my career. I think I've reached those types of numbers, but there's always a mistake.
Yeah.
Always you look at it and say, why the hell did I do that? It's just like, for whatever reason, we're not perfect.
Now, I know who you are to an extent, but if you can tell us a little bit more about, for our audience, your track record, your history of what you've accomplished, your accolades, and along with that, what you've learned from First Majestic that you can take to First Mining Gold, and what have you learned that can replicate the same kind of success?
Well, I'd have to probably write a book to answer that question, and I'm also probably the wrong person to ask. I measure my own success on how many jobs I've created.
Okay.
And when I was in Africa, building the copper mine or the copper company, more than one project. The year I started that company in 1992, there was me by myself.
Yeah.
Right, it was a concept, right? And by 2000, the year I left, we had 9,000 employees. So, and that was, from my work. Of course, there's other people involved.
How many did you say?
9,000.
9,000. Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, it took a lot of people to get there. It wasn't just me.
Yeah.
But that's how it starts. It starts with an idea.
Yeah.
Hiring the right people, getting the right assets, being able to get access to capital, to raise money, to get people excited about what you're doing. It's an entire effort. It's a process. So, and in a case like that, where you have 9,000 direct jobs,
wow.
the ancillary jobs, local businesses, restaurants, hotels, manufacturing, there's probably, economists will differ on their estimates, but I use 5 as an estimate. So 5 times 9 is 45. So that company had impact on 45,000 people in that region of Africa. And that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you look at what I've done in Mexico and elsewhere around the world and other projects that I've financed, including First Mining Gold, use those same kinds of numbers. And quite honestly, I've created hundreds of thousands of jobs in my career. And I remember driving through towns in Mexico when I was putting First Majestic together, and there was no one under the age of 10, no one between the age of 10 and no one between the age of 60 that lived in the town. It was grandparents and grandkids.
So you changed the whole neighborhood.
So because there was no jobs,
yeah.
right? So everyone lived in the United States, or they lived in Mexico City, or they lived in Guadalajara. So we show up with a drill rig and a plan, and within 5 years, there's 2,000 people there. You got a movie theater, you got a local general store, you got paved roadways, you got electricity, you got water infrastructure, the schools are built, you got kids in school with uniforms, you got soccer teams that are baseball teams, you've got a bustling little community. And that was created from a single idea, right?
Yeah.
And that's what turns me on. When I drive through that town today, it's completely different than it was.
I've been interviewing leaders of companies for a while. You're the first person that has named jobs as a rubric of success. So since I've never heard that answer, I'm intrigued. So is that what drives you for like? You're also doing First Mint. If you can tell us about that and what drives you to do First Mint and what that. First of all, tell us what First Mint is, and then what's driving you to do this endeavor as well as.
Yeah, well, First Mint is a 100% owned subsidiary of First Majestic Silver. So it's not, it is its own company, but it's a subsidiary company. So what was behind that was back in '08, we started selling silver directly from Mexico. We'd sell it, we'd transport it up to the United States and then have it refined. And then we would ship it off to mints. And I'm not going to name the mints, but there's 3 or 4 mints that we used at that time for over a decade. And over the last couple of years, starting in about 2002, they just wouldn't give us the metal, and we'd ship them refined bars and say, hey, look, we want that broken down into XYZ product,
right?
And we'd wait months and months and months and months, and they just wouldn't give it to us, and so we ended up you go onto our website at the time, and you see sold out, sold out, sold out. And so we'd get contacted by investors or buyers of silver saying, hey, you guys are a silver company, why the heck can't you supply silver? And I go, that's a good point. So in 2002, I decided to screw it and open up our own mint. So minting and mining are quite a bit different business. So we had to put together an entire new team, had to find a building, had to buy all the equipment and do all the training. And so today that silver still comes from Mexico, still goes to the same refineries it did before, but now it gets shipped to our own mint in Nevada, and we produce a variety of different bars and coins. And it's firstmint.com, and it's pretty fun. We're having a good time.
It's great. So you got First Mint, First Majestic, and First Mining Gold. First Mining Gold is a big project where you're going on a new jurisdiction. You're expecting permits in the next year. If you can tell us a little bit about what you got going on there, the grade, the infrastructure around the area, and
there's First Mining Gold. I said the company bought 8 projects. Right? I said it was a consolidation of 8 different companies. So we're specifically speaking about one project, which is called the Spring Pro project in Northern Ontario, and there's very little infrastructure, and that's one of the biggest challenges. So the government, and that's partly been the delay of getting to the point where they're getting to today, because the government's got to build roadways, they've got to get electricity in there, they've got the local communities have to agree for the development for all this to happen, right? So it's a big, huge political process that the company has to get through. But $100 million in, we paid $53 million for the company or for the mine, and the market cap of that company we bought actually had a $400 million market cap in 2012, and we bought it for $53 million.
Wow!
And that goes back to what I said earlier about the big dip, in metal in mining stocks in 2014, 2015. They had already spent $100 million on that, and we came in and bought the whole company for $53 million, and then we put in another $100 million, and now it looks like it's going to happen. So it's mining is a very patient process. At 65 years old, I just learned to, 30 years ago I wouldn't be as patient as I am today. But if you're a patient investor, and you put your money with good management teams and right projects, you can do quite well. And I put my money where my mouth is. I own about 35 million shares of First Mining Gold. And I just bought 1 million shares last week in the market. My insider reports are there. People can go look at them. And I continually support the business and excited about it.
So for First Mining Gold, you said you have 8 projects?
And we've been selling them off to finance. There's 2 core projects. One is Spring Pole and one is Du Parquet. One's in Quebec, Du Parquet, and the other one's in Ontario, Spring Pole. So these are 2 chunky, each one's 5 million ounces of gold. And they're quite different assets, but there's not too many 5 million ounce gold deposits in Canada. So they're very unique but the other 6 companies that we had bought back in 2015, 2016, we've been bringing partnerships in, been selling parts of them to finance the other two.
Yeah.
So we've used that portfolio to finance the rest of the business. So it's been pretty interesting.
So Keith, if you can tell us about the capital you have for these companies and what you plan to do with the capital, I guess, for the next foreseeable future. Do you have any milestones that investors can
Well, First
look out
Mining
for?
Gold has no money.
Okay.
You know, and when I say that, of course
Yeah.
they have money.
Of course.
They got like $10 million in the bank, but you know, they're always it's a development company.
Yeah.
Exploration and development, which is most of the companies here,
Right.
they're always, you know, having to raise money until they get revenue. So, and that's just the mining sector. It's a very cash intensive business,
Yeah.
and investors just have to realize that, right? And you know, when you get into production and finally get into revenue,
Yeah.
then hopefully, if you're profitable, you can stop raising money. And First Majestic is at that time in its life cycle. There's been times where we've had to go to market. First Majestic has had to go to market and raise money.
Yeah.
During low metal price environments, when we've struggled with certain assets, you know, we've had to raise capital with the banks. You know, fortunately today, you know, our financials come out in a couple of weeks, so I can't tell you what our treasury amount is, but we're about $350 million in the bank last quarter, and I can tell you we're higher than that today. So, you know, our balance sheet is as strong as it has ever been in the company's history. So, you know, I get my Friday cash report from my finance department, and I look at the bank account, and I go, you know, it puts a smile on my face. So,
This is for First Majestic Gold.
First Majestic
Or
Silver.
First Majestic Silver.
That's right.
And then First Mining Gold is on the developmental stage.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can share about First Mining Gold that would excite investors, the like milestones
Well,
that we
permitting
can afford?
is a big thing, right? So,
Yeah.
because as I said, the Lassonde curve,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if people want to look that up, but you know, he's very famous Canadian guide founder of, fuck, I should know that, Franco-Nevada,
Yep.
founder of Franco-Nevada, and so he came up with this Lassonde curve, they call it.
So where are we on the curve?
First Mining Gold, we're right at the bottom, because that's your development period, right? That's when investors don't care. Because whenever you rely on a government to do anything, investors just kind of get bored and they don't even want to worry about, because no one knows when the government's going to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, you keep pushing, and you know, you kind of wonder, right? And eventually, hopefully, the governments agree in your favor at some point.
Right.
After you spent X amount of money, and then if that does actually happen,
Right.
then you know, you go through a re-rating, because then all of a sudden all the big guys, the big gold companies, they don't want to buy you during this whole permitting phase,
Right.
because it's too risky for them.
Right.
They could buy you and then wait another 10 years. So why would they do that, right? And the board of directors won't let them do that. So they have to wait for that permit to be in place, then they become a target, right? And then that's when you get your re-rating. So that's when you start going back up again.
Well, I love what you're about. I'm, again, like I said, I've never met someone who puts the rubric of how many jobs. Now, as you look forward to your prospective future for these three, you know, two companies and First Mint as a subsidiary of First Majestic Gold or First Majestic Silver, what's in it for you? What excites you? I've never asked this question, but I've also never gotten this answer from anybody. So I'm curious, what excites Keith Neumeyer, and just want our listeners to know you as a person.
You know, I like building stuff. You know, I have, you know, all my life. You know, when I was walking through the streets of Zurich just a couple of weeks ago, and you know, there's a construction project going on.
Yeah.
And I stopped, and I just watched the workers do their job, right? Because I'm saying, oh, and I go, that's interesting. And you know, when I'm walking through a mill in Mexico, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
Like, I came from the banking sector, so, but I know a lot about engineering, and I know a lot about geology. But you know, I've actually, you know, told engineers a better way of doing things on site, you know, at a mill, and then turn some heads, you know, and say, oh, and they would agree with me. Oh, that's a better way of doing it. So, I don't know. I just love doing stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, for those who don't know the companies, if you can tell us, our followers, how to find you, if they have any questions, if you can tell us about the tickers and websites
Yeah, sure.
of these three things.
Well, I'm on Twitter or X, at Keith_Neumeyer. I don't do a lot, but every now and then, all the First Mining Gold, all the First Majestic Silver news releases will go out on my X feed, and other companies that I'm invested in or interested in that people may want to know about, I also have on my feed.
Okay.
Or go to just firstmajestic.com, 1-800 number, call in anytime. Firstmininggold.com. Both of them have X feeds as well, and they're active on social media. So we're easy to find. Trading symbol for First Majestic Silver is AG. Easy symbol, AG in Toronto, AG in New York. And then trading symbol for First Mining Gold is FF in Canada, and the U.S. symbol, I actually don't know it off the top of my head. But,
And then First Mint is the website.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, firstmint.com. Yeah, just go there. It's not publicly traded. It's owned by, but it's got its own website. So go. It's an e-commerce store. Easy to use. You buy your silver. We think we're pretty reasonably priced. The differentiation between us and another company that is just a mint, for example, they have to go buy their silver from someone.
You make yours.
Yeah, and they buy their silver, then they have all their costs on top of that to produce a product.
Right.
And then they hopefully make a profit on that, so they actually jack it up a little bit.
Right.
After that. We don't have that same. We have our mining costs.
Yeah.
Which are, as I said earlier, about $20.
Right.
So we have a lot of flexibility. We don't have to go buy our silver. We produce it.
Well,
Mine to mint. That's our logo. Mine to mint.
Awesome. Well, full disclosure, I used to be. I have traded in and out of First Majestic Silver. I am not right now, but that may change. I'm a huge fan of yours. Always will be. Thanks for being on our show.
Great. Well, nice seeing you. Nice meeting you.